Hello everyone, I'm Aysha and welcome back to my reviews. Grief is something all of us will experience at some point in life. Sometimes it becomes so overwhelming that we start wishing for the impossible. And that's exactly what today's book is exploring about. Today I'm going to review a classic horror novel by Stephen King, which is Pet Sematary. This book was first published in 1983. It has such a unique storyline and I was truly impressed by it. In fact, Stephen King himself actually called this the scariest novel he has ever written. Personally though, I didn't find it as terrifying as I expected it to be. Of course, there were some creepy moments because of the supernatural elements, but this story isn't just about the ghosts or the supernaturals. It was something that explores family, grief, responsibility, and most importantly, it's about how far people are willing to go when they can't bear the pain of losing someone they love. The book follows a doctor named Lewis Creed who moves into a small town of Ludlow with his wife, his 2 young kids, and a pet cat named Church. But there is a big problem right away. Their new house was located right next to a busy road where heavy trucks drive by really fast. Shortly after settling into their new home, their neighbor, Judd Crandall, introduces them to the Pet Cemetery, which was a burial ground where all the local kids had been burying their pets for years. But it turns out that there is actually another graveyard hidden deep in the woods with dark and scary secrets. Later on, after a tragic event, Lewis had to make a desperate choice to try and fix things, and from there, the story gets more interesting, more mysterious and thrilling. Fun fact about this novel is that it was inspired by a real pet cemetery near Stephen King's home in Maine. Throughout the first few chapters of this novel, Stephen King kept dropping hints as to what's going to happen next. And because of that, I felt like the beginning of the story was a bit predictable, but I was still surprised by a few plot twists later in the novel. When it comes to Stephen King's writing style, I found it to be super creative. It was powerful, like I can actually feel what Lewis was experiencing in the story when I read this book. His language is simple, but at times I felt like it was too detailed, like there were parts that were longer than necessary, which also made the story more realistic. Talking about the characters, there aren't many of them. It's pretty much the ones I've mentioned earlier, but the story portrays Lewis Creed as the main character. All the other characters felt so real and close to me because each of them had their own personalities and background histories, which made it easier for me to connect emotionally to the story. Overall, I would recommend this to readers who are 18 and above because it contains some mature contents. And I also think it's a great read for people who are, horror fans, pet lovers, and honestly, anyone with a family, because I think they'll be able to relate to it more. As for my final thoughts, I genuinely couldn't put the book down once I started reading it. It's one of those books that keeps you wanting to know more about what happens next. It's really thrilling. And the only reason I'm not giving it a perfect 10 is because I found the beginning of the story a bit predictable and some descriptions were too long. But other than that, I absolutely loved it because it has a different storyline than the other horror stories that I used to read. So I'm giving Pet Sematary a 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching today's review, and until next time, bye!